to me, she's always been after Harry's attention. There is a constant need to touch Harry, and people at first said, oh, look, that's sweet. And then people started seeing, oh, she's actually controlling him. She's getting him to move in different directions. She's getting him to move out of the way.
This has been Meghan Markle's MO from the beginning. She wants all of the privileges that go along with an identity, but she doesn't want any of the responsibility. She wants the tiara. She doesn't want the public service.
As her clout dwindled, as people lost interest in what she and Harry had going on, she was going to move to the next generation. That was the final card she had to play, Archie and Lilibet.
She had roughly 4 hours. That's the estimated window. About 4 hours passed between Prince Harry's Time magazine recognition hitting the internet and Meghan Markle suddenly publishing one of the most unusual and talked about collections of photos ever shared on her account. For those 4 hours, something different was happening. People were talking about Harry without the spotlight immediately shifting elsewhere. He was being recognized as his own person, a man connected to a cause, a man with a personal history, and someone giving a heartfelt interview about sport, service, and what it means to keep moving forward after difficult experiences. Then came the response that many long-time royal watchers immediately noticed.
Based on one that wants to be out of the public light, doesn't want his children involved, and that's why we see keep them get the back of their heads, and one that's desperate to utilize that.
And utilize the children.
The photo collection appeared online, featuring the Onion video, the image of someone lying on the ground, the down-the-shirt photo, a picture of Harry and Meghan together from 9 years earlier reposted in the summer of 2026, as though it were brand new, and a photo of young Princess Lilibet holding a drawing while wearing a casual t-shirt. The entire collection was suddenly placed in front of millions of viewers. To many observers, the whole thing looked rushed and thrown together at high speed. Even some people who are usually supportive of Meghan had trouble figuring out what message the post was supposed to send. That led critics to point toward a familiar explanation, one that has followed discussions about her public image for years. They argue that Meghan struggles when attention shifts away from her for any length of time, whether it's 4 hours, 4 minutes, or even a brief moment when someone else is receiving positive recognition. And when that kind of moment arrives, critics say the reaction can be quick, emotional, and not always carefully planned. That is why this latest photo dump sparked so much conversation. To understand why people reacted so strongly,
but also it puts the attention back on her. No matter who she is with, her friends, Kelly McKee-Zafin, when she was there collecting an award at a charity that she started, Meghan draped herself over Kelly. To the point Kelly had to move her head out of the way. Meghan has to be the star.
You first have to understand what came before it. This wasn't just another ordinary day online. It was a moment that got everyone talking. This was a week when the Sussex story seemed to be moving in several different directions at once, and not every development appeared to be working in Meghan's favor. Harry had just taken part in a major interview with Time magazine to accompany his selection as one of the 100 most influential people in sports. The interview was substantial, personal, and focused heavily on his own experiences. Harry spoke about his childhood connection to sports. He discussed the Invictus Games with clear enthusiasm and appreciation. He shared stories about young participants who told him the event had changed their lives and given them hope during difficult times. He also reflected on growing up as a child who struggled to connect with the classroom environment and instead found confidence and purpose through athletics. By most standards, it was a strong interview.
Unfortunately, we know from Meghan, she really likes to ram the point home with everything, and more is better when actually less is better. It's funny because she does have this minimalist idea about herself.
It felt personal, grounded, and sincere. But one detail immediately stood out to many people following the Sussex story. Throughout the entire feature, Meghan Markle was not mentioned. Across the quotes, personal memories, and reflections, the focus remained entirely on Harry and his own journey. That detail became a major talking point. For years, the Sussex public image has often been viewed as a partnership built around a shared narrative. Even when only one of them takes center stage, many people see the other as part of the story. The couple has frequently been presented as a united brand, with their projects and public appearances closely connected. In this interview, however, the spotlight stayed firmly on Harry. He stood on his own, discussing his work, his experiences, and the causes that matter to him. Many readers felt he came across as confident, capable, and fully comfortable in that role. For most couples, a partner receiving independent recognition would simply be a moment to celebrate. You might post a congratulatory message, share the achievement, or allow them to enjoy the attention.
But the amount of photos that she put just made her really look like kind of an insane narcissist. There were a lot of just her.
However, critics who closely follow Meghan's public image and social media activity argue that this kind of situation often sparks intense discussion because they believe moments where attention shifts elsewhere tend to generate the strongest reactions and speculation online. According to some critics and longtime observers, the real issue is not silence or negative headlines. It is what happens when Harry receives attention entirely on his own. They argue that the kind of invisibility that seems to generate the most discussion is being left out of someone else's success story, and in their view, that appears to be a particularly sensitive point when public recognition is focused solely on Harry. That idea is worth considering because it helps explain why certain moments attract so much attention online. If the pattern critics describe is accurate, then what people may be witnessing is not a traditional partnership dynamic in the public sphere. Instead, they see a situation where Harry's achievements often become part of a larger conversation about Meghan as well. Some commentators have even suggested that positive moments for Harry are frequently followed by actions that redirect attention back toward the couple, or toward Meghan herself. Whether intentional or not, that perception has become a recurring topic among royal watchers. What made this week stand out was that the reaction was not linked to criticism, controversy, or a damaging news story. There was no major negative report to answer, no public accusation requiring a response, and no wave of bad press demanding attention. The conversation started because Harry was receiving positive recognition for his own work and accomplishments. That distinction is what many observers found so interesting. Critics argue that the situation offers insight not into Meghan's relationship with the media, but into how the Sussex public narrative operates when one member of the couple is receiving praise independently.
There's a huge hypocrisy here given Catherine, Catherine suffering
Yes.
from cancer was hauled over the coals, especially in the American mainstream media. Yet Meghan sort of posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered. The actual pictures of the children, which are always so weird.
In their interpretation, moments when Harry stands alone in the spotlight often seem to be followed by efforts that shift public attention elsewhere, creating a fresh topic for discussion almost immediately. Because of that, many people felt the photo collection deserved a closer look than it initially received. The details sparked nearly as much conversation as the timing itself. Among the most discussed examples was the Onion video. Meghan is the founder and public face of As Ever, a lifestyle brand built around themes of elegance, presentation, home life, and carefully curated personal style. That context is part of why the video quickly became a major talking point and drew so much attention online. Through As Ever, Meghan promotes products like honey, jam, tea, and a carefully crafted lifestyle image built around elegance, comfort, and quiet luxury. The brand's appeal is rooted in the idea that her approach to home life is something people may admire or want to recreate. Because of that, every piece of content connected to the brand tends to attract close attention. That is why the Onion video generated so much discussion online. Some food writers and viewers questioned the cutting technique shown in the clip. Critics pointed to details they felt looked awkward or rushed, including concerns about food preparation methods and knife handling. Rather than giving the impression of someone completely at ease in the kitchen, some viewers felt the video appeared less polished than the brand image usually presented. Whether fair or not, those observations quickly became part of the broader conversation.
Harry's just a simp. He just goes along with everything that his wife says and does. He is quite clearly a weak man under the thumb. But Meghan, she is literally the master of her own undoing.
Then there was the photograph showing Meghan lying on the ground, wearing wrinkled trousers and partially obscuring her face. The image immediately sparked debate. People struggled to figure out what message it was intended to communicate. Was it meant to feel artistic, candid, playful, deliberately unconventional? Opinions varied widely, but one criticism appeared repeatedly. Many viewers felt the image lacked the careful planning normally associated with highly curated social media content. The overall impression, critics argued, was that speed may have taken priority over presentation. That perception became even stronger when attention shifted to an older photograph of Harry and Meghan together. The image showed a warm and affectionate moment between the couple, but online discussions quickly focused on claims that the photo dated back many years. That detail raised a larger question for some observers. Why choose an older image at this particular moment? Critics suggested that the decision naturally led people to wonder why a past photograph was being highlighted instead of something more recent. Whether or not those conclusions were justified, the timing became a major topic of debate. Taken together, many commentators argued that these posts felt less like a traditional lifestyle update and more like a direct response to the media conversation unfolding elsewhere. The collection gave the impression of a quickly assembled effort to redirect attention toward a new discussion, just as Harry's Time magazine interview was attracting significant public interest on its own. There is something especially striking about the As Ever debate because the brand is still so new. Meghan did not spend decades building it. It was launched relatively recently with significant attention, careful marketing, and a highly curated image. From the branding to the photography, every detail appeared designed to communicate a specific lifestyle and aesthetic. That is why some critics found the timing of this content so unusual. A young brand is still in the stage where every post helps shape public perception. Each image, video, and update either strengthens the message or creates new questions about it. According to many observers, posting the Onion video at this particular moment seemed out of step with the polished image the brand has been trying to establish. Critics argued that the post generated attention, but not necessarily for the reasons a lifestyle brand would want. However, it was the photograph of Princess Lilibet that sparked the strongest reaction. Among all the discussion surrounding the videos and older photos, that image quickly became a major talking point. Lilibet had recently turned 5 years old. As many commentators pointed out, she did not choose to have a public social media presence, nor does she have control over how her image is shared and discussed online.
Outside of actually playing the sports in the events, with Harry continuously talking about the mental health support and the anti-suicide prevention and everything else that the Invictus Games does,
that reality led to a fresh wave of debate about privacy and public exposure. The discussion became even more intense because of Meghan's previous public advocacy regarding online safety for children. Over the years, she has spoken about the risks associated with social media and has participated in events and initiatives focused on protecting young people online. Because of that, some critics saw a contradiction between those public positions and the decision to share the photo. Supporters and critics viewed the situation very differently, but the conversation itself became impossible to ignore. Critics argued that the image's timing, arriving during the same news cycle as Harry's Time magazine recognition, invited additional scrutiny. In their view, it raised questions about consistency between public messaging and personal social media choices, adding yet another layer to an already heated debate surrounding the Sussexes and their online presence. There is also a deeper layer to the discussion surrounding that photograph, because public interest in images of the Sussex children has been building for quite some time. Over the years, online commentators have raised questions about inconsistencies, unusual details, and the limited number of public appearances involving Archie and commented Bao, Lilibet. As a result, every new image tends to attract intense scrutiny and speculation. Some observers have even debated whether certain photographs may have been heavily edited before being released. However, these claims remain speculative, and no public evidence has conclusively established that any images were altered beyond normal photo editing practices. Even so, the ongoing debate has become part of the larger conversation surrounding how the Sussex family manages privacy and public visibility. That is why the photo of 5-year-old Lilibet generated so much attention. For critics, the discussion was not only about the image itself, it was also about the broader questions people have been asking regarding how the children are presented to the public when their photos are shared, and what role those images play in the Sussexes' public narrative. What often gets lost in these debates is that Archie and Lilibet did not choose any of this attention. They did not decide to grow up in the spotlight, nor did they create the circumstances that have placed so much public focus on their family. Their lives have unfolded amid years of media coverage, royal tensions, and constant online discussion about their parents. As they grow older, they will eventually be able to look back at all of it for themselves. Every photograph, every headline, every social media post, and every public debate will remain part of the historical record. Like anyone else, they will form their own opinions about what was shared and why. What many commentators find especially interesting is the contrast often drawn between the Sussexes' approach and that of the Prince and Princess of Wales. William and Catherine have generally chosen a more structured balance, occasionally sharing family photographs while limiting their children's public exposure. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are seen at selected public events and in official portraits, but supporters of that approach argue that those appearances are relatively limited and carefully managed. That comparison continues to fuel debate about different ways public figures choose to handle family privacy and visibility. Many observers say the difference comes down to context and timing. Children in public-facing families are often seen at selected events, family milestones, or official occasions, without creating the impression that their appearance is tied to a particular news story. That is why some critics drew a sharp contrast between the photo of Lilibet and the attention Harry was receiving for his Time magazine recognition during the same period.
There is a potential there that they're just handing out numbers for other charities to go to. And it's funny to see that, the fact that Harry is constantly praising the Invictus Games as saving lives, but they could be potentially just moving them on to other organizations. And this is the whole thing with the Invictus. It's become a bit of a farce. People don't trust it anymore.
The larger conversation also brought renewed focus to the Invictus Games, one of the projects most closely associated with Harry himself. Unlike joint business ventures, media deals, or shared public initiatives, Invictus has long been viewed as something uniquely connected to his personal experience and military background. It was created to support wounded, injured, and sick service personnel and veterans through the power of sport. The Games have existed for more than a decade and have earned praise from many participants and supporters. Veterans from around the world have taken part, and numerous competitors have spoken publicly about the positive impact the event has had on their lives. For many people, Invictus remains one of Harry's most significant and respected achievements. At the same time, questions and criticism surrounding the organization have occasionally surfaced over the years. Some commentators and former insiders have raised concerns about how certain aspects of the charity operate, while others have questioned whether public messaging always reflects every participant's experience. These discussions have circulated online and in media reports, although perspectives on the issue vary considerably. What makes the debate noteworthy is that critics argue these concerns deserve clearer responses and greater transparency. Supporters maintain that Invictus continues to provide meaningful benefits to veterans, while skeptics believe some questions remain unresolved. The disagreement has become part of the broader conversation surrounding Harry's public role and future plans. As a result, some analysts have suggested that if Harry hopes to use future Invictus-related events to strengthen relationships or improve public perceptions, the organization itself may face increased scrutiny alongside the recognition and goodwill it has built over the years. According to some commentators, Harry's challenge is not simply about promoting Invictus, it is about maintaining the level of public credibility and visibility that comes with strong royal support. Critics argue that appearances by senior members of the royal family can bring attention, prestige, and positive headlines. However, they also point out that public endorsements alone cannot resolve concerns about an organization's operations if questions are being raised elsewhere. From that perspective, some analysts believe royal attendance would be symbolic rather than transformative. A well-known royal figure appearing at an event may generate goodwill, but it does not automatically answer criticism or settle ongoing debates. Those issues, critics argue, require direct responses, transparency, and public confidence in the organization itself. Another point often raised is that Harry may not have needed to place Invictus at the center of wider personal and royal narratives in the first place. Supporters of that view argue that the Games could have remained separate from family disputes, media battles, business ventures, and broader public relations efforts. They note that many successful charitable organizations maintain a clear distinction between their mission and the personal lives of their founders. Critics contend that the Sussex approach has frequently blurred those lines. They argue that charitable work, media projects, personal branding, and public storytelling have often become intertwined, creating situations where different objectives appear to overlap. Whether fair or not, that perception has become a recurring theme in discussions about both Harry and Meghan. Alongside all of this sits the ongoing conversation about reconciliation with the royal family. Articles and reports discussing a possible reunion are often framed in emotional terms: a son hoping to reconnect with his father, grandchildren spending more time with relatives, and a family facing the realities of age and changing circumstances. For many observers, that aspect of the story feels more personal and relatable than the public disputes that usually dominate headlines. There is a widely held belief that family relationships can become more important with time, particularly during periods of uncertainty. Even among those who disagree about the Sussexes, many acknowledge that the desire for reconciliation may be genuine, regardless of the debate surrounding how those efforts are communicated publicly. Critics who examined the article closely argue that it can also be viewed through a more strategic lens. Rather than seeing it purely as a personal reflection on family relationships, they believe it functioned as a carefully timed media message released during a period when Harry was seeking influence in an ongoing public discussion. According to reports, several issues remain central to Harry's position. Among them is the long-running debate over security arrangements in the United Kingdom. Harry has repeatedly argued that adequate protection is necessary for visits to Britain, while legal and governmental decisions on the matter have remained a source of disagreement. At the same time, reports have suggested that relationships within the royal family remain complicated. Observers note that reconciliation discussions are often accompanied by conditions, expectations, and unresolved disputes that have accumulated over several years. Critics point out that many of these messages have reached the public through media coverage rather than through private channels, a pattern that has become familiar throughout the Sussex story. That is why some commentators focus as much on the method of communication as on the message itself. They argue that interviews, articles, and media briefings have frequently been used to signal positions, apply pressure, or shape public perception. Whether effective or not, this approach has become one of the defining features of the ongoing royal drama. One detail that generated particular attention involved Peter Phillips. As the son of Princess Anne and a cousin of Harry, Peter has generally stayed away from public controversy. Reports surrounding his recent wedding highlighted the attendance of numerous senior royals, while Harry was notably absent from the event. For some royal watchers, that detail spoke volumes, not because of any dramatic public falling out, but because of the quieter explanation that the two men had simply drifted apart over time. To many observers, that possibility felt more revealing than any headline-grabbing feud. The security dispute itself remains one of the most significant unresolved issues in the broader story. Unlike many royal controversies driven by speculation and public opinion, this matter involves real legal, financial, and practical considerations. Questions about who provides protection, how it is funded, and what level of security is appropriate continue to shape discussions about Harry's future relationship with the United Kingdom and the royal family. Critics argue that the security issue serves a purpose beyond the practical concerns involved. In their view, it allows Harry to frame the situation in a very specific way: a son who wants to visit, reconnect with family, and strengthen ties, but who faces a major obstacle outside his control. Whether people agree with that interpretation or not, commentators who have followed the Sussex story for years say the pattern feels familiar. They argue that the approach shifts attention toward external barriers rather than personal choices. As a result, public debate often centers on what others should do differently instead of focusing solely on Harry's own decisions. Supporters see a legitimate concern being raised, while critics see a carefully structured communication strategy. That disagreement continues to shape much of the conversation. So where does all of this leave Meghan? That question sits underneath nearly every headline from this week. The photo collection, controversial and widely discussed as it was, may only be the most visible part of a much larger story about public image, career direction, and long-term relevance. At 44 years old and several years removed from royal duties, Meghan finds herself in a very different position than many expected when she unbowed. Harry stepped away from royal life. Some of the projects launched since then have achieved varying levels of success. The podcast ended, Netflix productions have generated attention but sparked mixed reactions, and as ever, remains a relatively new brand, still trying to establish its place in a competitive market. What Meghan unquestionably still has is visibility. Millions of people continue to follow her every move online. However, critics often point out that the attention she receives is not always driven by admiration alone. Instead, it frequently comes from people analyzing, debating, and scrutinizing nearly everything she posts. That creates a difficult dynamic for any public figure. Attention remains valuable, but controversy often generates more engagement than straightforward promotion. Critics argue that this reality has shaped much of Meghan's online presence, where posts that spark debate tend to travel farther and dominate conversations longer. Whether that is a deliberate strategy or simply a consequence of her public profile remains a matter of constant discussion, but it has undeniably become a defining feature of the Sussex media narrative. To critics, the rushed feeling surrounding the photo collection told a story all by itself. The Onion video, the image on the ground, the older photograph, and the picture of young Lilibet all combined to create an impression of urgency. Many observers felt the posts carried an energy that seemed reactive rather than carefully planned. Their interpretation is that the content reflected someone trying to stay at the center of a fast-moving public conversation. Instead of projecting confidence and control, critics argued that the collection raised questions about timing, messaging, and overall strategy. Whether fair or unfair, that became a major theme in online discussions throughout the week. The contrast was especially noticeable because Harry was receiving recognition independently at the same time. For years, the Sussex narrative has often focused on the couple as a unit, but this particular moment centered largely on Harry and his accomplishments. Critics suggest that this shift in attention may help explain why the social media activity generated so much scrutiny. Many commentators also pointed to the use of older images and family photos as part of the discussion. They questioned why archive material was being highlighted and debated what message those choices were intended to send. The decisions became topics of conversation in their own right, separate from the original posts themselves. More broadly, critics argue that the Sussexes continue to face a challenge involving public perception. The brand they have presented over the years emphasizes independence, purpose, authenticity, and a life built outside royal constraints. Supporters believe they have largely succeeded in that mission, while skeptics argue that the public image and the reality sometimes appear out of sync. That perceived gap is what fuels so much ongoing debate. Critics point to moments like this week's photo collection as evidence that maintaining the desired narrative is becoming increasingly difficult. They argue that every controversial post, every unexpected image, and every public contradiction adds another layer of scrutiny. Ultimately, the biggest question raised by this week may not be about Harry's Time magazine recognition, the photo collection, or any single social media post at all. Instead, it is about whether the Sussex brand can continue to match the expectations it created, while facing constant public examination from supporters, critics, and curious observers who continue to watch every move with intense interest. The bigger question is actually much simpler. Can Meghan be happy for Harry when the spotlight is on him alone? Can the competition people talk about ever turn into true teamwork? Can the constant reaction give way to something calmer? According to critics and commentators who have followed the couple for years, that may be difficult. They argue that the patterns seen in public appearances, interviews, and social media posts have repeated too often to ignore. Still, some say they hope that perception is wrong and that the couple can find a healthier balance moving forward. When Harry and Meghan moved to California 6 years ago, the promise was a fresh start. Supporters believed they would build a new life based on independence, purpose, and freedom from royal restrictions. For a while, people watched with genuine interest to see what they would create. Instead, critics point to moments like this week's controversy. The Onion video, the resurfaced old photograph, the family images, and the timing of it all became bigger talking points than Harry's recognition itself. Many observers felt that what should have been a positive moment quickly turned into another debate about the Sussex brand. Harry's Time magazine recognition may not be remembered as a major historical event, but critics argue it revealed something important. They believe the reaction surrounding it exposed ongoing questions about the couple's public dynamic and how attention is managed when one person receives individual praise. What stood out most to many observers was the speed of the response. Within just a few hours, a completely different conversation had taken over social media. Whether that was intentional or not remains a matter of opinion, but it left people asking the same question once again. What did Harry himself think about all of it? Harry gave his interview, spoke about the causes that matter to him, and for a few hours the spotlight remained entirely on him. Meghan's name never entered the conversation, and that quickly became one of the most discussed details of all. Whether Harry noticed everything that followed is something only he knows. But commentators who closely watched the Sussex story believe the timing and reaction were difficult to ignore. What do you think? Can Meghan step back and allow Harry to enjoy a major achievement or positive moment on his own? And was the absence of any mention of Meghan in Harry's Time magazine interview intentional or simply a coincidence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching.